for
14 years now. I've said it's time now for a look at sports with Dickie Bird.
This is the last time. This is the hard
It's been
time
a really great day. And I'm almost cried out now. I'm going to tell you the truth. I've just about cried out.
Has it been a good ride?
It really has been a fantastic ride. We're going to talk about madness. We're going to talk about March Madness. It continues today. And we're going to talk about Picabo breaking a leg.
Now, here's Dick Clay in the K8 Sports Zone.
I, Hubert Brodell, as mayor of the city of Jonesboro, do hereby proclaim Friday, March the 13th, at Dick Clay Day in Jonesboro in Region 8.
This is what Mayor Hubert Brodell is
Will it never end, Hubert? Thank you so much. This has been some kind of day now. I have never thought myself as special, but I'm beginning to think I am.
You're a special guy.
No, I am not either. Thank you very much, Hubert. Now, we're going to continue this thing. Arkansas rallies from a 10-point deficit in the second half to beat Nebraska 74-65 in the first round of the NCAA tournament last night, advancing to play Utah tomorrow. Pat Bradley scored 19 points for the 6th-seeded Razorbacks, including 4 of 4 on free throws in the final 2 minutes. All of Arkansas's points in the final 4 minutes came from the free throw line, where they hit 15 of 16 in the closing minutes.
We're the worst free throw shooting team in the United States.
The last-minute thriller on the Syracuse at Iona. John Ellis hitting a 3 to put the Orangemen ahead 60-58, but here comes Iona. James McDonald sinking a 3 to put Iona up by 1 late. Now here's the play. Ellis on the kick-out, automatic. Syracuse winning that one 63-61. Let's go to the board. New Mexico has defeated Butler 79-62. Kentucky over South Carolina State 82-67. St. Louis loses today to UMass. Is that a turnaround there? Is that right? Okay. UMass defeated St. Louis 57-51. And before we get to let's get to Picabo. Picabo Street ends the ski season with a broken leg. The Olympic Super G champion spilled today in the final race of the World Cup season in Switzerland. Street breaking the same leg she hurt last season, needing surgery to set the bone. She may face another operation, and they tell me this is my last sportscast, and I want to announce this. This is going to be my last barn burner, folks. Tuckerman has defeated Greenland 51-49.
And E. Ritter Communications and Lucent Technologies.
Well, the time has finally come that we've talked about and thought about for a long time now. Time to say goodbye to somebody really special. I want to thank Dick Clay for his 13,000 casts here. Nobody was on more of them with him than me. Nobody's going to miss him more. I want to thank him for all the times he made me laugh and the one time he made me cry. Good luck to you, buddy.
Well, it's hard to top that. I really don't know what to say. Dick's been like a brother to me, and it's very difficult to say goodbye to someone you love so much. And I'm supposed to keep Diana from crying, so I'm not doing a very good job at it. But Dick, we love you, and we're going to miss you an awful lot.
Well, it makes me both happy and sad to bring this to you, Dick Clay. I've never known anyone that I've respected and admired more than Dick Clay. It's been a real treat to sit next to you for 9 years. You've given us thousands of smiles, miles of compassion, and some of the best moments of our lives.
Well, Dick, I'm going to walk around here on this side of you. As general manager of KAIT, it's been my pleasure and the pleasure of all the employees and the viewers of Region 8 for over 30 years have had you as the #1 sports announcer in Northeast Arkansas. And I told you earlier today in your reception that we didn't have a little plaque for you, but we did have. And I want to give you this. It's presented to Dick Clay for an award of achievement for over 30 years of continuous sports reporting to Region 8 television viewers, March the 13th, 1998.
If y'all expect me to talk a long time. You're in trouble. I don't know what to say. It's been a heck of a day. And with that, I'm going to say that's sports.
K8 News at 6. Brought to you by Kavanaugh Ford, Lynn Green's Big Star, and by Riggs Supply. What's the Word is brought to you by Nucor Steel and by Nucor Yamato Steel.
Hello, everyone. I'm Mark Tucker.
And I'm Terry Wood.
For the next 30 minutes, we are going to take a look back at a career which spans 3 decades. That career, of course, belonging to KAIT's Dick Clay.
And as you just saw, our 6 o'clock news tonight, Dick Clay anchoring his last official sportscast as sports director here at KAIT. Now, I'll tell you what, Mark, I know for you and surely for me, it's just not going to be the same around here without Dickie Bird.
Terry, I know you've worked with Dick for over 20 years here at the station. For me, it's been 7, and everyone who's worked with Dick or been around him any time at all, they usually have a funny or touching story about Dick Clay. My favorite Dick Clay story, oddly enough, has nothing to do with sports, but with the birth of my daughter, the date April 6th, 1996, and is that a face or is that a face? Do you know who's taking these pictures of my baby? The first pictures, you guessed it, Dick Clay. And if you ask Haley how many granddads she has, she will say 3. Papa Jesse, Papa Jim, and of course, Papa Dickie Bird.
My favorite Dick Clay story goes way back into the late 70s. I was in my late 20s. Dick was about 40, and he entered us in the first ever Spring River Celebrity Canoe Race. We raced against disc jockeys, Springfield Television, Little Rock television stations. I wanted to win this thing, so we got into the canoes, and I said, what do you want, front or back? Dick said, I want in the back so I can guide the canoe. So we're tearing down the still water coming into Hardy, and I'm just absolutely pumping myself to death, and we're winning this thing.
Yeah.
And I look back, and Dick doesn't even have a paddle in his hand. He's waving to the people alongside the river.
Hello.
We win the race, pull up onto the bank. Dick gets out, starts signing autographs and shaking hands. I literally threw up because I had exerted that much energy. He said, Terry, work smarter, not harder.
Hey, stay tuned because we are just getting started. In the next 30 minutes, we're going to take a walk through history in the life and times of Dick Clay and sports in Region 8 because, after all, Dick Clay is absolutely a man for all seasons. We'll be right back. Dick Clay, a man for all seasons, brought to you by Aycock Pontiac.
Straight Talk with Dick Clay.
In a world where everything costs more than you think it should, there are still a few pleasant surprises. Now, let me show you. This Sonoma Sports Side is equipped the way you want it to be, with a tilt wheel, cruise control, AM/FM CD player list for $15,669. But your Aycock Advantage price is 0 down and $199 a month on a 36-month smart buy. Now, that's a pleasant surprise, and that's the Aycock Advantage. Aycock Pontiac GMC of Jonesboro.
Antiques, reminders of yesterday and treasures of today. Want to own a piece of the past? Just visit one of the 200 Arkansas antique stores listed in our free Antique Trails Guide. And during Antique Month in March, register for a free bed and breakfast weekend or $100 gift certificate. Call 1-800-NATURAL or stop by any participating shop, B&B, or First Commercial Bank branch today for your free Arkansas Antique Trails Guide. Travel Arkansas in March and own a piece of the past.
The war is escalating.
We need a victory, a big victory.
The Federation is losing the fight.
If those Dominion reinforcements come through the wormhole, we'll have lost everything.
The apocalypse is drawing near.
1 week, and the Alpha Quadrant is ours.
Now, the galaxy's only hope.
We've run out of time, Admiral.
Could be Cisco's last stand.
We're going to retake Deep Space Nine.
On the next Star Trek, Deep Space Nine.
Star Trek, Saturday night at 10:30 on KAIT.
Welcome back to Dick Clay, a man for all seasons. Terry, you've been doing the weather here at KAIT for over 20 years, and for all those years you've been across the desk from Dick Clay. Talk about consistency. Dick Clay and Terry Wood may be the 2 most recognized names in all of Region 8. And there's probably 1,000 changes which have taken place in those years at the station and in Region 8.
Well, that's right, Mark, and as you can imagine, things have changed a lot. Technical changes. We've gone from Polaroid to 16mm film to
to videotape, to digital, and on and on and on. But several other things have changed. Sideburns are out. Leisure suits are out, although Dick still has several of them. And the double chin look that he had for a time is gone. The new slim Dick Clay, ready for retirement.
Slim and trim, and things have really changed. This is going to be fun. Let's go retro and take a look back at where it all began. Dick Clay here at Region 8.
And the clock ran out with the Indians ahead, 78-76. This is Dick Clay reporting from Indian Fieldhouse.
Well, everybody's heard about the bird. Bird, bird, bird. The bird's a winner. Well, a bird, bird, bird. The bird is a winner. Well, a bird, bird, bird. Well, a bird is a winner. Well, a bird, bird, bird.
The bird is the word for sports in Region 8. For 3 decades, Dick Clay, or Dickie Bird, as we like to call him, has given us the sports stories, scores, and the highlights, and has covered all the bases.
Let me tell you about the birds and the bees and the flowers and the trees.
Dick's television career started at KAIT in 1968, 5 years after the station started transmitting. He was originally asked to just write the sports to be read by a news anchor. That quickly changed as Clay was named sports director, the only one KAIT has ever had.
And one day, the new general manager at KAIT-TV said, Dick, said, how would you like to do the sports news? Do you think you could do the sports news at KAIT? Dick said, I'll tell you what I've done. I've done everything from cut sprouts at Portageville to swim with Ho Chi Minh to sing with the Andrews sisters. And he said, me do the sports news? I can't do the sports news, but I can manage the station. Well, Bobby Harnreich says you can't manage the station, but you can do the sports news. So Dick started doing the sports news at that particular time and changed the face of everything that had ever happened at KAIT-TV.
Love to hear the robin go tweet, 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 rockin' robin, tweet, tweet,
Memories? There have been a few. A 1970 ASU football win over mighty Wichita State, leading to an undefeated season. A 1975 win over Memphis State, catapulting A-State to yet another unbeaten campaign. Dick even holds the record for most consecutive ASU football games attended home and away, spanning over 15 seasons. And what about the tornado which tore the roof off the Jonesboro High School gym in 1973? Dick says one of the biggest changes helping attract viewers was color film hitting the airwaves in the mid-70s. GMs, news directors, anchors, and reporters come and go. The constant has been Dick Clay.
And I'll challenge the fans. Be there on Saturday. We'll see you next Sunday.
Dick's seen plenty of coaches come and go. Most, if not all, respect his opinions and views.
I left my heart in San Francisco. Dick, I don't know whether you remember my famous singing, but you recorded it one time and showed everybody in Jonesboro what we did between takes when you did my show. I'll always think back that you were the greatest guy for Arkansas State I've ever been. As a matter of fact, you were a bigger homer than Orville Henry. You could make some of my losses, the bad losses, look like victories, and that was hard to do, particularly in the early days. I'll always be grateful, and I'm sure all the fans throughout Northeast Arkansas will be grateful for the Dickie Bird.
Okay.
Now, Dick, you take it easy.
This is not working. Well, we had a look at the O and the D.
Dick Clay has always carried his weight around Region 8 with a down-home style people just seem to relate to. Dickie Bird is just as comfortable on a bear hunt, shooting tape of elk, fishing, or cruising a Region 8 river with a friend.
Cool, clear water. I wonder how many balls the pros get out of there.
And how could I forget? Dick Clay on a golf course. Well, a sports anchor's got to do what a sports anchor's got to do.
Well, Dick, as president of the company, I can only wish you well and say that for all those years you've been a dedicated employee and a true professional, and I know the community and Cosmos Broadcasting and KAIT will miss you. And you know, when it comes to all that golf you played, all that fishing you did, and all that hunting you did, the only thing I can say is I'm glad you're going to be doing it on your time now instead of ours. Good luck.
Don't you know the bird? Well, everybody knows that the bird is a winner.
Terry, I bet you can find Dick Clay on a golf course just about every day coming up. That is, as Dick Clay would say, is a no-brainer.
Now, we've had our calculators out at the station trying to figure out just how many sports shows Dick Clay has done in 28 years at KAIT. Our best guesses add up to over 13,000. And no telling how many interviews Dick has done over 3 decades at KAIT, everyone from Mickey Mantle to Ted Williams.
As we mentioned before, nearly everyone who's met Dick has their favorite Dick Clay story. Here's a few of the best.
I think it's one of my favorite Dick Clay stories is when he almost got me fired. And he came on TV one night after we had talked, and it was the mid-'70s, and we were having those very good track and field programs, and we didn't have a track. And I said, Dick, we need to put some pressure on some people to get this track done out here. And that night, he really put some pressure on some people. I don't know if he put pressure on them or not, but he told them why we needed a track, how come, and what for. And the next morning, I was in the president's office wanting to know if I wanted to keep my job or not. But in reality, Dick Clay did a tremendous amount of good for our track and field program. If it was not for Dick Clay, we probably wouldn't have a track to run on or compete on. If it was not for Dick Clay, there's not many people that wouldn't even know that there was Arkansas State track and field back in the mid-'70s when they were competing for national championships.
When I was, I believe, a senior in high school, I had an unusual dream that involved Dick Clay. And at the time, Dick Clay must have been very big in my eyes as the local sportscaster, because in the dream, we had different settings. We were at a golf course, we were at the track, we were in different places. And at the time, I was a 15.5-foot pole vaulter in high school, and Dick was taking me around, introducing me to all these people. And the unusual thing about it was, at the time, Dick said, this kid's going to be the new world record holder, this kid's going to be the new world record holder. And at the time, I was 3 feet away, and little in my mind I thought that I would ever reach the world record. But Dick was extremely cool. He was like the Fonz in this dream. You wouldn't believe it. And at the time, Dick was a smoker. And he was flagging his cigarette around. And he was Mr. Cool. And everywhere he went, of course, everybody knew him. And everybody thought, wow, this is wonderful. And I think what that represented to me is that Dick's influence and how important he was to me as the sportscaster, and if you made his show, was a big hit. He was bigger than ESPN, maybe.
I remember one thing on Dick Clay that I'll never forget. Dick always kind of prided himself when he got inside about 3 feet. He didn't want to take a normal putt. He always wanted to do it one-handed. So one time he and Coach Neil Abels from ASU and myself were in a 3-man scramble at Cherokee Village. We was on the last day playing, and we get up on the, it's a 3-man scramble, and I'm the worst putter, so they let me go first, and I miss, and Dick Clay gets up there, and he said, this is easy. He said, I'll just do it one-handed. So he gets up and puts about a 2.5-footer, and he misses. Of course, Coach Abel misses, and he swears that day that he'll never let Dick Clay play with us again.
I'm just proud to say that Dick and I have been friends for a long, long time, and he's quite a guy. He's just a man with a lot of class as far as I'm concerned. And growing up in Portageville, right there on the farm from Portageville, and he knows what it's all about. He's shot that cotton. He's done it all like most of us have. And I think of Dick like a commercial he does. Straight talk from Dick Clay. Dick is a straight shooter, and I like that about him very much.
He told me one time, said they can always find enough money to buy folks contracts, but they can't find enough money to give a coach a raise when he really needs it. But that didn't come out on the TV set. He always made something positive out of it. And I'm going to tell you this, Mark, Arkansas State's going to miss Dickie Joe Clay.
But you know one thing, Mark, that a lot of people do not know about Dick Clay, and that is he had a band way back when Elvis Presley used to come through this area and do nightclubs. His band was called Dickie and the Demons. And he was the lead vocalist, and it's been reported to me that he had a voice much like Elvis. And the reason he didn't pursue that is he was so dedicated to the TV and all that. He just wore out his singing and went right on into TV sportscasting, and has been doing an excellent job for 15 years at KAIT.
Dick Clay, the Velvet Elvis. Absolutely. Stay tuned. More of Dick Clay, a man for all seasons, coming at you next.
Straight Talk with Dick Clay.
It's been referred to as a pickup with a sports car attitude, and the reason is obvious. This 98 Sonoma pickup features the sport suspension package, 4.3 V6 engine, and an extremely handy side cargo door. The list price is $23.08, but your ACOC Advantage price is 0 down, $279 a month with a 36-month smart buy. A pickup with a sports car attitude that's also easy on your budget. That's the ACOC Advantage, ACOC Pontiac GMC of Jonesboro.
Be quick! Come and see!
Is that man in the balloon again? The American that crashed in our tree last year? He's trying it again. To crash in our tree? No! To go around the world. He's determined, that one, huh? Oh, crazy.
Steve Fawcett, proving once again you can't keep a good scout down.
Honesty is possessing the qualities of truthfulness and integrity. The Girl Scout law states,
I will do my best to be honest and fair.
Girl Scouts uphold this law by not cheating, stealing, or lying.
Welcome back to Dick Clay, a man for all seasons. You know, Terry, this guy right here looks a little bit like NFL quarterback Bob Greasy. Check out those sideburns there.
Absolutely. We all look a little bit different than we did when we started here back in the 70s. Dick Clay used to actually have more chins and less hair than I do, so big changes happening there.
Let's continue with the life and times of Dick Clay, told by some of his favorite people.
Hello, Dickie Bird, and greetings from Montgomery, Alabama. Lucy and I both want to wish you the very best in your retirement.
You know, I really still miss you, Dick, but I felt like I knew you a long time before I ever started working at KAIT, because I know, as you'll remember, my husband Freddie worked there a long time before I ever did, and he always talked about Dickie Bird with a lot of affection, so hey, Freddie says to tell you hey and good luck in retirement. Harold, what do you have memories of about Dick?
Oh, I think one of my favorite memories about Dick was when we would meet in the break room every afternoon, about mid-afternoon, when Dick would first come in, and he was always eating his snack. And I would sit there, and he and I would solve the problems of the world. And those were enjoyable times that I will always remember.
Well, you know, there's one thing I want to remind Dick of before he retires is, do you remember that day? I think it must have been back in about 1991, and we were looking for a weekend sports anchor. And I said, you know, Dickie Bird, I've got this tape from a guy. He's pretty good up in northwest Arkansas, but he's really, really young. Well, I don't think he's really, really as young as he used to be, are you, Mark Tucker? I know that you've raised him right, and that the viewers of Region 8 are really lucky to have Mark Tucker following in your footsteps.
Yeah, and the one thing I would like and will always remember is that Dick Clay is really a good neighbor everyone can turn to.
A lot of people didn't know this, but I originally lived in Munos when we moved to Jonesboro, which is only about where we lived on 1905. Munos was a sand wedge away from where Dick Clay lived. So I saw one evening Dick was at home. Keith had come over to the house, and I knew it would thrill Dick. And only Dick Clay and his family. At that time, Jason was at home, and his son, and he was a big basketball fan and had been in camps of mine for quite some time. So I got Keith, and we bundled up, and we just walked over to Dick Clay's house one afternoon and knocked on the door, and he comes to the door, and there stands 6'11" Keith Lee, you know, and it sort of blew Dickie Bird away. He wanted to know what he was doing, and I sort of played on like I didn't know what was going on. I was standing in the background, and they became friends, and every time Keith would come into town, he'd sort of want to go over to Dick's house and visit, and in the backyard we'd play basketball. Dick would play, Jason would play with Keith Lee, and I'm sure that'd be a fond memory for Jason as well. But as we all know, Keith went on to have a great career at Memphis, made All-American like 3 years in a row. But it was quite funny to watch Keith Lee walk up and knock on the media's door here in Jonesboro with Dickie Bird.
I had no idea. Dick Clay missed. We had asked him to MC our championship banquet after we had won the NWIT tournament in Amarillo and all of that. And I said, Dick, you know, we need you to come and MC our banquet. Dick declined that invitation because he was having a grandchild, of all things. Now that I have my first grandchild, I understand why he missed that banquet. There's nothing more precious than a grandchild, Dick, and I understand exactly what you were saying at the time. Of course, I understood it then, too, and I never held that against you at all. But Dick Clay, what can you say about Dick Clay? I mean, he is an institution. He is sports. There have been a lot of people associated with the sports department, but Dick Clay is KAIT sports.
One thing I remember that we did, Dick, that a lot of people don't recognize, one time the monitor was out, and we were trying to describe one of my games, and we couldn't see it. We had to get it on the air at a certain time, so we just faked it. We acted like we were watching the game, and you would say, well, here's Maurice Carthen running off tackle, and I would say, yeah, look at Maurice run. And there wasn't any picture whatsoever on the monitor. We faked it, and we did a heck of a job. I would like to fake a lot of my games, frankly, that we had to watch. But, Dick, you were a heck of a guy. You in Northeast Arkansas all realize how important you were in the sports world, and particularly to the Indians. I'll treasure our friendship and always admire you for what you accomplished and what you did for the Indians. Thank you once again.
Stay tuned. Next, we will talk to the man who's seen it all here at KAIT for nearly 30 years of broadcasting. Dick Clay will join us next. Stay tuned.
Straight Talk with Dick Clay.
Take all the ACOG Plus advantages that you already know about and add one more to the list. 6.9% APR for up to 60 months on any pre-owned Nissan in stock, 95 model or newer. Now, you heard me. I said 6.9% on pre-owned Sentras, Altimas, Maximus pickups, and Pathfinders for up to 60 months. Now, that's a real plus, and that's the ACOG Plus pre-owned vehicles at ACOG Pontiac of Jonesboro.
Tornadoes can strike at any time. Those most at risk are people in mobile homes and automobiles. The key to your safety is finding a secure building and taking cover. If you're driving, never try to outrun a tornado. Get out of your car and seek safety in a ditch or the lowest level you can find. In a home, go to the lowest level near an interior wall, like a basement or bathroom. And don't worry about the windows. Instead, immediately go to a safe place.
Brought to you by Kavanaugh Auto Dealers and by Smoot Manufactured Home Sales.
TGIF tonight is going insane.
What's for dinner? I'm starving. My stomach's eating my back.
With America's most lovable con.
Be okay if I got in bed with you?
No.
It's not going to hurt, Fritz.
Zane, only on an all-new Hiller and Diller. But before that, it's America's most lovable witch with a night of double Sabrinas.
Give me 5. I can't.
Plus a special Boy Meets World TGIF tonight.
Coming up tonight on KAIT.
Welcome back to Dick Clay, a man for all seasons, and we are joined by, who else, the man of the hour, Dick Clay, and does it just seem like a lifetime that just flashed by?
Well, this show has seemed like a lifetime. Dick Clay, a man for all season. I'm telling you, I don't deserve this. Teachers deserve this. Somebody else deserves it. I've just been sportscaster is all I've been. And actually, it's my pleasure to have done this for so long.
He's been a mentor, too. He's taught a lot of us.
What is a mentor?
That's kind of the grandfatherly guy who knows all the tricks. And we've watched him over the years, way up to 250 and
over here.
Svelte
Double chin time.
He has gained and lost more weight than Oprah Winfrey over the last 20 years, but it did go by fast. And we were in good shape years ago. Remember when we played the Chicago Bears and the Dallas Cowboys?
Right, and they brought, remember the Playmate of the Month or something down from
the Sugar Bears,
Chicago, Sugar Bears, yes, the Sugar Bears. And if I remember correctly, they killed us. So, but we did learn a good lesson from that, if I remember correctly.
That we were not professional athletes.
That's true. But we got the Dallas Cowboys.
The next year.
The next year. And what did we do? Well, we ran some people in on them, didn't we?
We kind of cheated on them. It was you and me and Larry Lacewell, but we were smart enough to take ourselves out after the opening introductions, and we ran in Gene Bradley and half of ASU's basketball team that year.
ASU fans remember Don Scaife. Remember, a guy could shoot it from 40 feet. Well, he was there.
Yeah.
And we beat.
We barely beat them. The Dallas Cowboys had never been beaten at basketball, raising money for charity. And I remember Drew Pearson told me after, he said, "You sure all these guys work out at Channel 8?"
Ringers.
We only hire real tall people out there.
They were undefeated coming into it. Had never been whipped, and we whipped them, we nipped them, and they didn't like it very much.
They weren't.
But we really liked it, I'm telling you.
But Jerry Buckensturm and the Chicago Bears killed us the year before. We thought we could stay with them. We actually were going to play basketball with them. These guys are in shape, and after about the first quarter, we're over on the sideline.
I was going to do like a Princeton thing. I call it the Portageville back door, and they wouldn't run it. If we'd have ran that thing, we'd have beat the Chicago Bears, I promise.
Hey, now we're not going to get rid of you this season.
No.
Now, we know that you've done your last regular sports show, but we can see Dick Clay every week.
That is right. You know, they say that everybody works for some kind of a deal like I'm going to go into. And I cannot go out there. My wife says you cannot go out there and just go down to the coffee shop in the morning and talk to the old guys and stuff. So I'm going to have a 30-minute show. I've already bought the time. It's going to be on at 5 o'clock every Saturday, 5:30. Now what I'm trying to do is just kind of take the people along with me on retirement, and we're going to go fishing, we're going to go hunting, we're going to go talk to coaches, we're going to go watch basketball and football. We're just going to have a good time. And so watch it, please, or the people won't buy the show.
Really, though, it's a great format for you, because on our sports segment, we get like 3.5, 4 minutes to do whatever, and a lot of time there's a lot more story to be told, and we just don't have time to do it.
Absolutely. I remember the Strawberry River thing that Darryl took me up one time, Darryl Guerin.
Yeah.
And we went up in the jet boats, and it was water about that deep, and we took off up there, and those jet boats were just fantastic. And I had an hour's worth of tape that was absolutely beautiful, and I used like 1:40. So I'm going to expand that a little bit. Maybe not an hour, but it'll be more than 1:40.
All right.
That's for sure.
Before we leave, we have a very special message from a very special guest who just happens to be the governor of Arkansas, Mike Huckabee.
Friday, March the 13th, 1998, an era that has lasted 3 decades will come to an end. KAIT sports director and anchor Dick Clay will be retiring. Dickie Bird, as his friends call him, came to KAIT television in 1968. The station was in its infancy, and although Dick was hired to shoot, write, and anchor sports, he also shot spot news. Sometimes that shooting consisted of a Polaroid that would then be put on a pegboard and shot with a studio camera and then laid to film, and that was the video for that particular story that night. Over the years, Dick has been a driving force in promoting sports in Northeast Arkansas. There is no way to measure his impact in advancing the cause of every athletic program at Arkansas State University. He once even vowed to let his beard grow as long as the football Indians continued a winning streak. By the end of that 1975 season, the team was 11-0, and Dickie looked like a member of the rock group ZZ Top. But Dick's work was in no way confined to college athletics. Every high school and sandlot team in our viewing area knows the Dickie Bird. Even after 30 years, when other sports anchors are comfortably content to send out the underlings to shoot high school sporting events, Dick Clay strikes out every afternoon and evening with his Clay cam and covers these events firsthand. A larger market station may consider this trivial sports, but ask the parents of the children Dick has featured on his cast, and they'll give you a very different opinion. But perhaps the work that best typifies the essence of Dick Clay is his tireless dedication to the Special Olympics. Here again, Dick was at the forefront in promoting this program and has volunteered literally thousands of hours in coaching, officiating, and announcing Special Olympic events. It's his passion, and the only pay that he's ever accepted has been the love and admiration of the children whose lives he helped make a little brighter. Over the past several years, Dick has also used his anchor desk and influence to fight the war on drugs. Rarely does a week go by when he's not speaking to a group of youngsters from kindergarten to college level, challenging them to say no to these poisons that destroy dreams and lives. So to those of us who know and love him, Dick Clay has been so much more than just a sports reporter and an anchor. He's been a man who loved his community and his viewers, and he gave back so much more than he ever received. This world needs more individuals like Dick Clay, but although Dickie will no longer be anchoring the 6 and 10 sports, He will continue to host a weekly sports magazine program on KAIT. But here again, he'll be promoting something else he loves, the great outdoor recreational opportunities right here in the natural state. So as you can see, Dick Clay has packed a lot into these 30 years. All of us will miss him on the evening news because he was more than a colleague, an anchor. He was and will always remain a dear friend to all in Arkansas. Best wishes, Dick.
That is outstanding.
I have no words to say. Tell you the truth, Mark. That is terrific. I don't deserve it. And when I was chopping cotton in Portersville, I never thought this would happen to me. I can promise you that.
All right, we're going to have to go, but thanks for watching. Dick Clay, a man for all seasons.
KAIT.